Hello and welcome to the Battle Royale podcast. I'm your host as always, Edward Jones, and joining me of course is my co-host, the Professor Mr. Stephen Palmer.
Hello, hello, hello.
And this is episode 6, Memories. On tonight's episode, we're obviously now finally out into the killing fields of Battle Royale. Here on our chapter by chapter look at the classic cult movie that is Battle Royale. And yeah, Stephen, it's only taken us six episodes, but we are now finally out in the killing fields. The fun can really begin, so to speak. And I think this is also the chapter where we really got a sense the reality starts to really sort of sink in for a lot of our class members, as now they're out in sort of like the big bad world. I mean, it's surprising in many ways at the same time, the fact that it takes some of them until this moment to realize that, you know, this isn't a game. This is actually happening, despite the fact that they've seen one of their classmates get a knife to the head and another one get his throat blown out. So yeah, so opening thoughts on this one. I mean, what is it with these kids that it's taken them so long to realize, you know, this is actually happening?
I guess up to now, they've been in a state. So they've woken up, drugged. They've had quite an intense. They've seen their teacher murdered. Well, they've seen the end result of their teacher being murdered. They've come across a teacher they never thought they'd see again, who's turned into a psycho nut job. And like you say, and two of their classmates, and not unpopular classmates as well, have bitten the dust. But I think up to now, everything's sort of been happening to them, and this is the moment when, at least for a couple of them, at this early time, it really becomes real. Because there's one thing when someone's hunting you, but there's another thing when you have to be the hunted as well. And I don't know about you, but I think pulling the trigger on another human being would be a hard thing to do. Yeah, there may be exceptions, and again, there's a huge difference to pulling the trigger with a projectile weapon and I don't know, a plastic hammer. but no, I think you know, we see in this section of the film one of the characters kill somebody, and it's literally one of his peers, and doesn't really cope very well, does he?
No, I mean, obviously when we follow Shuya Nanahara, as he goes out at the start of the chapter, he goes out outside, and you would think you get a bit of breathing space. Everyone's going to go off and find somewhere to hide and regroup. But no, with this film, it's just straight as soon as you go outside the door, things aren't going well. And in particular, we have Yoshio, who is probably best known as, you know, the fat kid of the group, who basically has gone kind of postal, I want to say. He's kind of postal, kind of panicky. Basically, he's found that he's been given a crossbow and decides to start sniping off his classmates as he's determined he's going to get off this island. And at the same time, he's really sort of struggling with what he has to do, but he's got this sort of drive to make it happen, and in particular he takes out one of his classmates straight off the back in Girl 14, Mayumi Tendo, who we see sort of turn up with an arrow through the throat. In the manga it's through her face, but so they toned it down a little bit for the film. And it's, I have to say again, this is one of those shocking moments of violence that I think we become numb to now. But at the time, it was sort of like, wow, that's kind of a bit off when expecting that so soon.
Yeah, I mean, we don't actually see him shoot her. She sort of appears to show you from the bushes near the school with a crossbow bolt through her neck. Quite
so I don't feel good.
Yeah, it's a quite well done piece of gore work, really. Actually, isn't it? The thing through her neck. Don't feel good.
Oh, it's a simple but effective, definitely.
Yeah, and she drops down dead. Now, it's funny you should say that, because you said she's girl 14.
Yes.
And I'm pretty certain Yoshio was student number 1, right? So
yes, he was.
Why did it take him 14 and 13, 27, 28 students to come out before he shot one. But there we go. I don't know how many bolts he had in his quiver, but I wonder why. So there must have been an element of shock. Otherwise, he would have maybe just stood at the door and killed the first lot of people straight away outside the door with that weapon. But maybe, as I say, he's been in shock and probably hasn't worked it out. But that he had an opportunity to really clear the field if he was really thinking straight.
Yeah, I mean, certainly in like the manga and the book, it's revealed. I mean, the fact he basically goes off and cries initially, and that's how those first 13 sort of slip by. And he basically debates the situation he's in, and it's this sort of fear of dying that caused him to return to the school. And it's just unfortunately in time for Miyomi to turn up, and she's sort of like the first of his victims. And in the actual manga, he's on top of the doorway, whereas in the film he's on top of the hill. And I was questioned when I saw it in the manga, it's like, how did he get up there? Because he's not the most athletic member in the field, is he? Really? He in the the source material, he's basically just the fat bully kid who's sort of picked on by the likes of Hiroshi and Shuya, Ryushi, and they just basically just harassed him. Whereas he's another of these sort of classmates where we see Shuya has basically formed these little like bonds and tried to reach out to these kids and tried to generally be the generally nice guy there. So with this kid though, he's one of the few bullied ones who hasn't just like instantly sees this as a moment of revenge. He's sort of like he tries to just sees that by playing the game is how he's going to get out of the game. So he's certainly an interesting character, even though his time in the game is rather brief.
Yeah, I don't think the film does him any favours in characterisation. He's just the fat kid that's first out, and he ends up being one of the first to die. But it does, he is the big kid. Being student number one, I think also suggests that he's the most successful academically. I think the numbering in the class results to some tests and things like that, because that's how they do it in Japan, just humiliate you with every element of that they can. So it makes you think he's probably got a lot of inbuilt rage to let out, and it's interesting that he doesn't last very long out in the field. But then I guess maybe he wouldn't last very long in the real world anyway.
No, I think that because he hasn't really got any sort of allies in this class. Unlike when you look at the other sort of weaker members of this group, they've all got their own sort of like social circles that they can fall back on. Like we see the girls at the lighthouse, and we got other characters who are trying to find each other. And he's one of these few characters who doesn't actually have anyone, so to speak. I mean, we see him that he basically has his friend who accidentally shoots him. Because Shuja.
Yeah, so he falls down the hill, drops his crossbow. His mate picks it up and accidentally kills him with it. Oh.
Yeah.
I tell you, that's a lethal weapon. That one. That's 2 for 2. That weapon's had.
Well, definitely so. And I mean, he's obviously killed by Kashida Nida, who will obviously turn up a bit later on in the film, and is kind of he's kind of an oddball himself, and I don't think he ever really sort of set out to kill Yoshido. I never got that sort of thing.
It's an absolute accident, isn't it? He sort of swings around and oops. and
it's almost like he falls back and it goes off.
Yeah, that's right. It sort of goes off on its own. But like, why was it loaded? I don't know. There's so many. Yeah, why? If it was loaded, why did it not go off as he fell down the hill? But yeah, I don't know. But yeah, it's. But again, in 2 minutes of the film, less than 2 minutes of the film, we lose 2 characters to the same weapon, and the kill rate's gone up 100%. within moments of being outside.
Yeah, I have to say that his death is still cracks me up every time I see it. It's like he's been paralyzed and he's just like this lump of meat, just almost comically falls down. So
Yeah, it is. There is a comic element to it. I have to agree.
obviously now Nanahara, or Shuya, I don't know which way you want to go
Well,
with this.
we're gonna be his friends, so we can call him Shuya, as Noriko
Shuya.
accidentally calls him, and then he sort of suggests it's all right to call me Shuya now. So that's what we'll be as well.
Yeah. Now he obviously reunites with Noriko, who I believe. How did Noriko hurt her leg? Did she shot with the crossbow? Because this is why I couldn't really make out what if I missed something here.
I'm not sure either, because she gets it's her arm, isn't it? She's got a wound at the top of her arm. And I think you're right. I think it is that she gets winged by a crossbow bolt, because Noriko is out straight after Shuya, because they're both they've got the same student number, so she must follow him. So I think he was just waiting for her, and she got winged. That's right, she gets winged by Yoshio's crossbow when he appears, and then they have a little moment which leads to him tumbling down. But she's not really hurt by it. She's just winged by it, and they run off to a convenient cave, with a matte painting at the exit. It looks really weird, and it doesn't really make sense where that cave is and how quickly they've got there. When you think where the school is on the map, how they're suddenly by this sort of seaside cliff. But never mind, they go in there and they have a little bonding moment, and both have. Well, we learn a couple of things, don't we? We learn that they've both got really shit weapons. Well, one's not even a weapon. A pot lid for Shuya, and Noriko has binoculars, which I guess could be of some value, but not much good as a lethal weapon.
Well, this is the thing when it comes to the weapons, though, because not all of them are lethal weapons. Some people have like weapons which are sort of more to give them like an advantage. Like you have the binoculars, you've got the scanner that one of them has. There's also got the body armor. And all these, which all gives you like an advantage, because if you're trying to avoid people. It really comes in kind of handy like that.
I guess there's sort of four types, aren't there? There's decent weapons, so there's plenty of shotguns and crossbows, and also I'll include the Kevlar vest in that as well. Useful things. Then you've got the what the heck stuff, the coat hangers. The such like, and the pot lid, and then you've got the things which could be of use to the right kids, like the GPS device, maybe like the megaphone. You could possibly use that to do something, and then one of them has cyanide, I think, which is, I'd say, the fourth thing is just something to get yourself off the path. But
I don't know really, because I mean that's obviously Go 9 Yuko, who's over in the lighthouse, and I mean cyanide, as we see, I mean it can be used either way. You could lure someone in and poison them.
I guess indeed that's what she does. Spoilers for episode 16 or whatever it is of this podcast. Hold that thought, everybody.
But yeah, I mean, I look at the list of weapons here, and as you said, there is some really great stuff that you can have, and then you can have really useful stuff, and then you have the what the hell are they thinking? I said the pot lid, the coat hanger, the plastic hammer,
the plastic boxing gloves.
The plastic hammer is pretty funny.
Cloth
the megaphone. Yes, exactly. It's like, what is this? So you're going to blind them with your amazing fashion? And The megaphone, which I think they only included just so that they could set up one of the kills in this film.
Yes, I think that is a plot device rather than a.
And there's also a rope, which I guess would be handy.
Yes, no, you could use a rope for
rope's got many uses.
But paper fan, not so much.
No. So you look at the list and it's like, oh, what would I sort of want really? I mean, do you want something like that can hide, like the stickle or the switchblade, or do you like go with something like, the revolver or the shotgun? So
I guess some of them depends on how much ammo you've got.
Mm.
Like one of them's just got 2 hand grenades. Right, hand grenades are great, and I guess if people are congregating together, you can get multiple kills. But really, you're down to 2, and even then, a hand grenade isn't an impact device, is it? So you're kind of relying on a whole bunch of things to happen. So yeah, I think one of the shotguns, surely. Although guns are notoriously difficult to aim, and frankly, I'm looking at that crossbow. That crossbow's been pretty bloody deadly on its 2 times its shots. That's in the film anyway. So maybe that's what I'd like the most, but I'm not sure they've got enough bolts.
No, that is obviously a downside. But then again, it's a Battle Royale. You gather stuff up as you go. It's just that initial sort of edge that you have. But I mean,
maybe something like the katana that Yumiko has is more useful because it's deadly if you wield it properly, but doesn't have any limitations on ammunition.
I love the fact that if you weld it properly, like you think that any of these kids are going to know how to weld it.
They've all been doing swordplay, aikido at school, haven't they? Oh no, they didn't go.
They're going to be the same as all these, these goth kids that you see who buy the deadly martial arts weapons and walk around with it under their trench coat so they can go and play with their friends in the park.
I'm guessing that the katana and the machete are more useful than the nunchuck, right? I reckon you could swing it around and do some damage, yeah?
Yeah, I mean, you can do that.
To other kids. Whereas with the nunchuck, you're more likely to hurt yourself.
Do you think either of those could take on Kaoru with a pickaxe?
No, obviously, but he's a special case, isn't he? But I reckon we could have all taken the fat kid. Sorry, yes, you're right. But we could all take on the fat kid. We're so going to get cancelled, mate.
I just have to say though, I mean, this film does actually point out the fact that if ever faced with someone wielding a crossbow, that it can be easily defeated with a flashlight to the face. That's
good anything, I suppose. But
his noise though when he makes it is like ah, and he just falls down the hill. Again, it's so weirdly comical. This whole sequence is, and I don't know if that was the intention really, because things are going to get pretty heavy pretty quick in this film. So,
sure.
But yeah, I mean, obviously, when we go to look at Shuya and Noriko in the cave, and Noriko has that flashback to her own bully past, and again with the bully past, I couldn't tell whether they include that just so that they can sort of make this sort of stance that not all the bully kids went completely nuts on the island. There's some who were still able to retain their humanity, even though that they've got grudges that they could be settling.
Yeah, it's strange because this is sort of a moment of character that's done by a very short flashback. Yeah. So we sort of see Noriko from above in a toilet cubicle. Remember, she's the one who liked going to school and was the only one who turned up. So the bullying, a bit minimal. And then we see that there's been some of the worst toilet graffiti ever. They really aren't very good at it, are they? In this school, I forget what they call her, but they call her some nonsense little names. I can't remember what it is, like Skinny or something. It's rubbish, and the pictures are rubbish. You just think, God, the graffiti in the toilets in my school was much better.
I hate to think what it was.
Well, it's just half-assed, and the picture, I don't even know what. There's like these 2 squares with something written. It's just like. rubbish. But yes, but we get to see, the serious point is we do get to see that life isn't perfect for her, and that some other kids have been bullying her. And interestingly, that Shuya seems to think that she would want to hang around with them, and she sort of goes, "No, I shouldn't tell you this, but I really don't like those two." I don't think she tells them about the bullying, but yeah, it's certainly in the flashback. And then, of course, then we have another flashback where we see Shoya half admitting to his best mate, his now headless best mate, that he quite likes her as well. So yes, it sets up a little love triangle with one dead person.
Well, yeah, I mean, this is the thing, because obviously with Nobu, we have Nobu and Shuya, who are basically that. We have flashback to them in the children's home, and Shuya's there sort of strumming away on his guitar, Wild 7, and Nobu's there, who's I don't know how he sleeps in that bed, because his bed's basically half full of manga books. And they're having this conversation about Noriko, and he basically is like, "Oh yeah, I kind of like her, and he's sort of like, "Oh God, no, I like her as well." And I think it's pretty clear who Noriko liked, even though she's responsible for Nobu coming back on the school trip. We find out in this particular episode. So I know your question before is sort of like about him turning up just because it was a school trip, but it was actually Noriko's fault that he turned up. So. Blame
yes. Her. Well, that's
And look where it got him.
That's women for you, mate. You can't trust them. Don't go on a school trip because of them. We've all got that story, right?
I'm still on the whole graffiti side here. I'm just trying to remember what was on my school.
Well, I think my school. I know. I was at school 10 years before you, mate. But the graffiti in the toilets was a lot more full of homophobic slurs, racial slurs, just slurs, and not saying Elwood is a bit skinny. I think we would have tried a bit harder, and the pictures would have been. Let's face it, there would have been knob pics everywhere, right? you give a young teenager a dry erase marker and a plain wall, they will draw a knob.
It's true. It's always like stickmen with huge phalluses.
That's
just right, like squirting gallons of jizz everywhere.
That's what we need. That's what's lacking. This school is too nice, which is very ironic when you find out what happens. If Shane Meadows had made this film, it would have been a lot different.
I just remember like someone writing like Dick Tracy Devastation Tour, and it's like, first off, who's Dick Tracy and what tour includes this school?
Happy days.
Whether they like just like getting expelled, their expulsion from each school was like that little tour. But yeah, it's kind of like they have this sort of like tender little moment, the two of them in the cave where, as I said, they're comparing weapons and basically trying to assess this situation. And Noriko's like is only real sort of like comment is like not the fact that, oh, isn't it horrible, like 5 of our classmates have been killed already, but like, oh, you never got a chance to have those cookies, did you? And this is like her first thought.
Oh, you never got to eat my cookies. And then segue. Oh yes, what happened to the cookies, Elwood? Where are they now? That was number 2 on my list of things to worry about.
Exactly, it's like one of those key plot points. It's sort of like, what happened to those cookies? And it's sort of like cut away, and it's just Kitano being fat on the sofa, stuffing his face with cookies,
acting like I do on a Sunday afternoon watching the football. Just laid horizontally on a couch while the world around him goes to shit, eating someone else's cookies and not letting anybody else have them. I don't know. I thought he might be a bit more into it and be watching what's going on the screen rather than having a nap and eating some cookies. But Hey ho.
It's early days at the moment. I think this is the thing. He doesn't think that anything exciting is really going to be particularly happening. It's almost like he knows that it's just going to be some minor casualties in these sort of early hours of the game. So I think this is why he's not paying too much sort of focus to what's happening here. But it is for someone who's supposed to be like the person responsible for running the operation. He is rather laid back, and the fact that they've set him up at his own couch.
Yeah, there's a behind him. There's a whole Bond villain wall of electronics and GPS and maps and radars and things. But he's got a nice little couch to lay on with a little coffee table. Of course, we're being mean about it. And of course, what it does do, this is the start, I think, of the setup of this strange. Well, it's probably continuing on from the first scene, isn't it? But there's this sort of strange paternal relationship he has with the Rico. So it's quite apt he's eating her cookies, as we'll come to later in the film. So I guess it's creating, the cookies must have some kind of psychic bond. Something like that. But yes, I think it's just thematically that we've joined these two characters together. But yeah, that is the least subtle transition of the movie, and this is a movie which involves 40 kids killing each other. So yeah.
Cool. Anything else you want to discuss on this one?
I don't think so. It was a very short chapter, but things really got underway, I think. I felt I hadn't realised before we broke it down, I hadn't realised quite how long we spent in the classroom. How long we spent, I'd forgotten that we went to watch the video twice, and there was all sorts of things to pick with it, pick holes in, because that seems to be what I do now. But I think now finally things are on the go. We're finally gonna start meeting some of these kids, start seeing where they end up, start seeing some imaginative deaths, and yeah, I'm kind of happy we're out there now, because I think the film, this is where the film really springboards. And what was interesting was we are now 25% of the way through this film. We're half an hour in of a 2-hour movie. It's only just now the kills have started, which I think isn't how I remember it when I think back on it. I was feeling.
I think that. Yeah, but when you look at the pacing of this film, it's so tight, and you're so and the story's so engrossing. You don't realise that first half an hour flies by. It feels like about 15 minutes.
It really does. It really does, which is the opposite of how I feel about Battle Royale 2, which basically is a very similar beginning, but feels like it goes on for 3 hours. So I don't know if we'll ever do Battle Royale 2 minute by minute, or scene by scene, or whatever. I suggest not.
I can't imagine we're doing this minute by minute.
Oh God,
we'd be like 30 episodes in, and we've only now just got out into the field.
Yeah, but but chapter by chapter. But it's surprising how quickly that first 30. I know the people listeners are saying you're 6 episodes in, guys, and you're only 30 minutes into the film. But it is kind of interesting that actually we've only lost 4 kids, and we're quarter of the way through the film, and there are still several characters, important characters that have arcs in this movie that we haven't even met yet. I mean, there's 2 in particular I'm thinking of that get significant screen time and significant backstory, and you wouldn't have even noticed them in the film yet.
Oh, definitely, because when we look at the likes of Mitsuko and Kazuo, who are basically out there, you've got Kawada, who's disappeared out into the field, so we don't know where he's gone as well. And yeah, I mean, these are sort of like the key players in the game, and we don't obviously have yet to sort of see where they are as yet. I mean, obviously, the main 2 we're sort of focusing, if we were sort of like first time watchers, would obviously be where the 2 transfer students, I say Kazuo and Kawada, who've disappeared to, because sort of all eyes on them as the sort of wild cards of the film.
Yeah, and because they're
going to go.
and they look different physically. They look older, they dress differently, so we will recognise them. At the moment, other than Shuya and Noriko, we don't really know anybody. They all just look the same because they're all wearing the same school uniform, and the camera hasn't really spent any time with them. I'm really looking forward to later on in the film where there's a moment which ties it all together. But yeah, it's just, I just thought it was very interesting. We're significant portion into this film. You know, we finished the first act, I guess, and we really know barely anybody. And when we look back on this at the end and the characters that stick with us, we talked about this in either our Battle Royale episode or one of our listing episodes, where we talked about sort of the character that we remember most, or that we back most, or that we found was most interesting in this film. And we haven't even met the one that I think I chose or you chose, which is just, yeah, it's a very tightly paced film, but there's so much more to come.
Yeah, definitely. And I think this is really going to be one of our key talking points when we get onto our next chapter. Because really, as I said, we're now in the field, but I think the next chapter is the one where everything really starts to, the real sort of risks of the game start to become apparent, and who's going to be the sort of real dangerous ones of this game is really going to be apparent when we look at our next chapter. But all that is obviously all to come. Make sure you join us next time when we look at Chapter 7, Comparing Weapons. And thank you as always for listening. And if you haven't done already, please do hit the like and subscribe button. And also check out our main show, the Asian Cinema Film Club, where every couple of weeks myself and Stephen take it in turns to pick a film to highlight and discuss. And you can check all that out, as well as our complete archive of episodes, over on asiancinemafilmclub.wordpress.com. You can follow us both on Facebook and Instagram. And, let us know your favourite thoughts on Battle Royale. We always love to hear from you guys, and anything that we should be looking out for as we continue this chapter by chapter breakdown of the film. But thank you as always, my co-host Stephen.
Good night, everybody, and check your bag.
And we'll be back next time to discuss Chapter 7, Comparing Weapons. Good night.